Hello, everyone. It's Nate with a quick message. We offer new bonus content every week on our Patreon to include bonus interviews, movie reviews, and extended dad chats. And this week, if you sign up at the $10 tier before June 1st, you'll receive a care package from Francis that includes stickers, patches, and enamel pins. Sign up at patreon.com/hellofawaytodie. And now, please enjoy this week's show.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is me, it is Nate. Nate, it's nice here. We had a halfway decent Memorial Day weekend. I put in a retaining wall. I had some real dad activities going on all weekend. How are things on your side of the pond?
Well, yeah, similarly, I have had some dad activities. I ordered some garden tools that got delivered right before the weekend. So I had a pitchfork, and I've got a shovel and my rake and a hoe and stuff like that. So went to town getting rid of weeds, discovered an entire fucking kingdom of snails and slugs. I have, similar to that retaining wall you built there in the garden, we've got what look like terracotta stones that are sort of like tiles that stand up to separate different parts of the garden. And in some areas, those have fallen. And when you lift them up, you can imagine it's just snail kingdom. There's so many fucking snails. I don't know if they are eating my basil. I think it may actually be aphids, but I talked to my neighbors the other day. We had like a mandatory social distancing, standing outside but having drinks conversation. And they said that basil tends to not do very well outdoors here because the time of year where it's hot enough to really thrive is so short. So I might find myself in a situation where, despite my best efforts, my delicious basil does not do very well outdoors, but the stuff I'm growing indoors seems to be doing, like I grow it when it's warm, I put it outside, and when it's colder, I bring it in. It seems to be doing quite well. So fingers crossed that one at least thrives, so I can achieve my dream of having, reliable basil supplies and not have to go buy the dreaded slime leaves from the grocery store that go bad like immediately.
Yeah, basil's one of those that I've found does all right inside. I've always been able to grow some manner of basil, like in a jar or in a pot or something. You just gotta gotta stay up on top of it. I just have so much. My wife is in charge of the indoor plants, and I generally take care of the outdoor ones. So that's if anything ever comes in, I just immediately forget that it exists because I just don't even worry about it.
I actually germinated some seeds from hot peppers that I just bought at the grocery store. So some Scotch bonnet peppers and some serrano chilies. And those little seedlings are actually doing quite well. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to get them out because they're not quite big enough to get planted outdoors yet. But what I'm hoping is that if I do have time, I'll plant them in the hottest, sunniest part of the garden and get some actual hot peppers. But the basil, from what I can tell, seems to be doing quite well indoors, and it just seems to respond well to getting things like fertilizer and compost. Whereas in my experience, a lot of other sort of classic, what you might call Mediterranean herbs, you basically have to treat them like shit. You have to put them in like the worst soil and not give them fertilizer and stuff like that, and they do really well. Whereas basil actually does well with basil is like an analog to weed in that regard, that it actually, you get a higher quality product with all the fertilizer and all the other stuff that you put in there.
Yeah, I think the back of when my wife and I were planting dill, the back of it specifically is like, no, just treat it like shit. It doesn't want any of that. It doesn't want you. It's like to get a better flavor out of it. Like it has a defense mechanism of I'm tastier the more you abuse me, which, I'm not going to read too much into that because it's dill, but also I feel kind of bad because all of my stuff is well fertilized, for obvious reasons. So there's one, it's like, all right, we'll just get a pot and throw some sand and some clay ass dirt in there and we'll just see what it does. And it does great. It's fantastic. And looking forward to my pickles this year.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize that Mediterranean herbs were the plant equivalent of army marriages. So we're going to talk not about Memorial Day, which is already passed. We're not going to talk about, the usual run of things. We've got another story of what we might call an extended series of Green Berets being normal.
Like, I don't want to keep doing these stories necessarily, but Green Berets won't stop fucking up. Like, Green Berets, Special Forces. It seems like every month these days there's just something. There's somebody in Special Forces, no matter where it's at. And you don't see this out of the Marines, though. I don't know how much. Like, the Marines got First Marine Recon. Who else? Do the Marines have any other Special Forces, or is it all just kind of?
I mean, the Marines have what's called MARSOC, and I think Recon falls under them, but I'm not sure. MARSOC is a relatively recent creation, from what I understand. It was something that got stood up after 9/11. So
they haven't been around long enough to really have a history of being a bunch of bloviating fuck ups.
Exactly. I mean, the global war on terror basically made everybody want to have their own cool guy element, and as such, we are now in a situation where we get to reap the fruits of that. So I want to read from this story because some of you may have followed along the strange and convoluted history of a guy named Carlos Ghosn, who is a Lebanese Brazilian auto executive. He spent most of his career in France. He was a senior manager at Renault and wound up becoming the CEO of Nissan in the late 90s. In the early 2000s, he was given Japan's Father of the Year award because he was so successful in turning around Nissan's fortune. However, he apparently practiced some very shady executive compensation tactics, which ran afoul of Japan's corporate finance rules. As such, he was charged with a significant amount of fraud. And instead of standing trial in Japan, he decided, in his words, that Japan wasn't going to give him a fair trial. So it turns out he paid to get smuggled out of Japan in a box with the help of some Green Berets. So, the headline of the story is, ex-Green Beret nabbed in Nissan exec's escape, has lived on the edge. Decades before, a security camera caught Michael Taylor coming off a jet that was carrying one of the world's most wanted fugitives. The former Green Beret had a hard-earned reputation for taking on dicey assignments. Over the years, Taylor had been hired by parents to rescue abducted children. He went undercover for the FBI to sting a Massachusetts drug gang, and he worked as a military contractor in Iraq and Afghanistan, an assignment that landed him in a Utah jail for a federal fraud case. Shocker.
First off, like, every red flag right now. Like, okay, great that you go and get abducted children, but with that, like, children aren't abducted that often unless it's for ransom. So it feels like this guy is already, like, kind of. I'm sorry.
I've seen this story before. It's called Gone Baby Gone. It's a movie with Casey Affleck. Good movie. It basically feels like you're playing an RPG in which you have to talk to every fucked up gross person in Boston. However, I already love the way that it's just sort of breezily handled. Like, oh yeah, Green Beret did some shit, went to jail for fraud. Who hasn't done that?
And it's a federal case too. So this guy's already on some radars. But normal people like you and me who aren't ex-Green Berets, like that's usually a sign to be like, maybe you should take up a different profession because obviously doing fraud is not for you because you've been caught. Not this guy, though. Let's keep going.
So when Taylor was linked to the December escape of former Nissan CEO Carlos Ghosn from Japan, where the executive awaited trial on financial misconduct charges, some in U.S. military and legal circles immediately recognized the name. Taylor has, quote, gotten himself involved in situations that most people would never even think of, dangerous situations, but for all the right reasons, unquote. Paul Kelly, a former federal prosecutor in Boston who has known the security consultant since the early 1990s, said earlier this year.
That's how it always is. Oh, he was doing it because he loves it. He's just doing fraud because he loves his country. He's just doing these things. Who amongst us, Nate, has not found themselves in a federal prison in Utah for doing all the right things, for all the right reasons. But gosh darn it, just some things sometimes get a little haywire, and you end up doing 2 to 5.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's similar to the thing with Jordan Goudreau, like, oh, served his country, great team guy, excellent 18 Bravo, defrauded the army of $62,000 of housing stipends, but different strokes for different folks. Quote, was I surprised when I read the story that he may have been involved in what took place in Japan? No, not at all, unquote. Great. That sounds good. Wednesday, after months as fugitives, the 59-year-old Taylor and his 27-year-old son Peter were arrested in Massachusetts on charges accusing them of hiding Ghosn in a shipping case drilled with air holes and smuggling him out of Japan on a chartered jet. Investigators were still seeking George Antoine Zayek, a Lebanese-born colleague of Taylor. Kelly, now serving as the attorney for the Taylors, said they plan to challenge Japan's extradition request, quote, on several legal and factual grounds. Quote, Michael Taylor is a distinguished veteran and patriot, and both he and his son deserve a full and fair hearing regarding these issues, Kelly said in an email. Some of those who know Taylor say he is a character of questionable judgment with a history of legal troubles dating back well before the Utah case, but others praise him as a patriot, mentor, and devoted family man who regularly put himself at risk for his clients, including some with little ability to pay. Quote, he is the most all-American man I know, Taylor's assistant, Barbara Arturio, wrote to the federal judge before his sentencing in 2015. Quote, his favorite song is the national anthem, unquote. Okay. That is a fucking red flag right there.
Every aspect of this is a red flag. But to come, first off, our national anthem fucking sucks. Like, I'm sorry. Get a better national anthem. Ours was written in the 1800s.
Also, our national anthem, if I'm not mistaken, is basically a British drinking song. They just changed the words to. Not joking.
That sounds perfect. And I mean, look, I'm not saying we need to update it to keep the words, but do it to a vaporwave backing. That's what I would suggest. That's just me. That's I'm just putting out. I'm an ideas guy. But secondly, the history of legal troubles dating back well before the Utah case, but others praise him as a patriot, mentor, and devoted family man. These are all like this. Taylor is the kind of guy who is your neighbor and he lets you borrow his lawnmower, or he invites you over for a beer at his barbecue, but like also he goes to 3%er rallies. So he's probably that guy who on the surface he seems okay, but as soon as he gets like 3 beers into him, he starts saying some really unkind things about people who are in power, and starts doing really uncomfortable. I don't know. I bet he gets real fucking uncomfortable after a while is what I'm getting at. And no, man, that's nobody's favorite song is the national anthem. You're a fucking nerd if you are. Like, I don't want you anywhere near me because you're a dumbass.
Also, this gets way better. Let's just keep going. In 1993, a Massachusetts state trooper investigated Taylor for drug running and sued his supervisor after being told to stop scrutinizing the prized FBI informant. In 1998, Taylor was granted immunity in exchange for testifying against a Teamsters official accused of extortion. In 1999, he pleaded guilty to planting marijuana in the car of a client's estranged wife, leading to her arrest, according to a 2001 report in the Boston Herald. Taylor also made headlines in 2011 when he resigned as football coach at a Massachusetts prep school, Lawrence Academy, which was stripped of 2 titles. Taylor was accused of inappropriate donations, including covering tuitions for members of a team that included 7 Division I recruits. Quote, it wasn't pleasant when he was yelling at us across the field. He was calling us out for not being man enough to kick the ball, unquote, said John Mackay, who opposed Taylor as coach of St. George's School in Rhode Island. Quote, his zeal, probably like everything he does in life, is to the nth degree, unquote. So,
how do you get a job like a football coach when your history is being in jail for doing crimes?
I don't think he had gone to jail for the Utah crime yet, but he apparently planted evidence, was a CI for whatever in Massachusetts. It basically seems like the best way I could describe this is that this is a garden variety career cop behavior, but because he's also a Green Beret, he's decided he can be like a corrupt Boston cop for the entire world. Once again, my theory that this is basically Gone Baby Gone, the international version, is getting more and more accurate. Anyway, I'll continue. The security business that Taylor and a partner set up decades ago was initially focused on private investigations, but their caseload grew through corporate work and unofficial referrals from the State Department and FBI, including parents whose children had been taken overseas by former spouses. Quote, Michael Taylor was the only person in this great country that was able to help me, and he did, unquote. A California woman whose son was taken to Beirut wrote to the sentencing judge in the Utah military contracting case. Quote, Michael Taylor brought my son back, unquote. In 2012, federal prosecutors alleged that Taylor won a U.S. military contract to train Afghan soldiers by using secret information passed along from an American officer. The prosecutors said that when Taylor learned the contract was being investigated, he asked an FBI agent and friend to intervene. The government seized $5 million from the bank account of Taylor's company, and he spent 14 months in jail before he agreed to plead guilty to 2 counts. The government then agreed to return $2 million to the company as well as confiscated vehicles.
What are we glossing over here? Like, what do you think? Train Afghan soldiers by using secret information passed along from an American officer. What do you think that means? Because I've seen the Afghan soldiers. They're
My best guess
great.
is that he, being a Green Beret, had active duty Green Berets that he knew who were giving him things that they shouldn't have been sending him, whether it's related to the situation in the place where they were operating or the readiness of the Afghan military or something along those lines, that they were taking SIPR or higher class stuff and sending it to him so he could then make a business pitch. And when this got found out, they were like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? You're mishandling classified information and using it to sell yourself as, a competitor to like DynCorp or whoever else is being, paid ungodly amounts of money to train the Afghan military and police badly. So that would be my best guess. Like, once again, garden variety corrupt cop shit, but when you take it international, there actually are sometimes, rarely, but sometimes laws that apply. Anyway.
And there's just, there's more, I guess there's more things that you can really fuck up here. Like, look, whatever you want to say about the military, don't fuck around with classified information, man. That's all stuff that can get somebody killed or get somebody. But to just take it and use it to do a sales pitch is ballsy, but also not really like. I'm going to go ahead and say this probably isn't the first time. This is just the first time he was caught doing it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I would reckon that this kind of stuff has been going on for decades, and certainly since the global war on terror started, all that stuff probably kicked into high gear because there's so much money to be made. I mean, you think about just the ungodly amounts the U.S. government has spent of just massive, debt financing, basically, on hundreds of billions of dollars a year since 2001, and so much of that is diverted into private companies that are notionally providing services for the military. So, I mean, you basically, being a military contractor in some capacity tied to overseas stuff, things with the global war on terror, is the closest you can get as an American, as a human being, to the money printer that go burr. Like, that is the money printer. You have a thing where the military can at least, they can justify giving you a contract, and basically you have access to the imaginary machine that takes fake numbers and makes them into real numbers in your bank account. I mean, so in a way, like I said, once again, what happens when a Boston cop decides to be a corrupt Boston cop, but on the international stage, it probably doesn't go well for him. But at the same time, how can you fault somebody for being like, well, I could keep doing these jobs where I plant drugs on people's ex-wives to get them sent to jail, or I could pretend to be a training academy for the Afghan police and make tens of millions of dollars or more.
Yeah, I imagine. Like, it sounds like this guy's had a security business well before 9/11. It seems like all of his stuff kind of goes back to the 90s. So after War on Terror, after 9/11, things really kicked in high gear for companies like this. And just as we were talking with Silvercorp USA, that all these places exist. Like, people think about Blackwater as Blackwater is just the biggest. Blackwater is just the one that's most well funded. They're the ones that's got the helicopters and they've got their own jets and shit because it's all tied to a shitload of political money as is. But you have plenty of these. You know what? If you want, start one of these up. It's not hard. Create a Delaware LLC. You get everything incorporated. And you just start kind of pitching the government, pitching the United States military. Maybe you got to do a little bit of fraud, like low tier fraud, to really kind of establish yourself. Do some drug busts, help out a little bit on some national stuff, and then you can go international. That's where the big money is. I mean, I can't tell you how many fucking fat, stupid contractors I came across in Iraq or Afghanistan. No idea who they worked for. Like, who they worked for changed every 3 months because all these places were constantly being bought up and incorporated with one another. It's a huge racket. And it's a way to really pump your taxpayer money. I'm gonna become a real fucking libertarian here, but I hate waste. I hate it when I'm looking at somebody who makes 4 times as much as I do 1/4 of the work I do, and you just see it all over the place. So now, if any of you want to do it with the express purpose, because all of our listeners are cool, so if you guys want to defraud the government for tax money, I'm all about it. If you get caught, though, I can't help you. If you end up in a federal prison in Utah, that's on you. But also, you can do these things legally. There was nothing stopping Taylor from just training Afghan soldiers and leaving it at that. You can do these things perfectly legally and pump the government for a shitload of money and make a bunch of money off of it. It's just when you start being this $10 million contract isn't enough. I want it to be $15 million. But the way that I do that is I'm going to do some defrauding or something. That's when it's going to be a problem. So, I guess the ending here, my message to any of you aspiring military contractors is, look, be happy with what the government's giving you, because it's a lot, probably. And if you want to make more money, ingratiate yourself as one of those people who's not going to defraud the government, and they will just keep throwing money at you in a perfectly legal and normal way.
Yeah, and so in this case, it sounds like Carlos Ghosn thought, well, who do I need to do international crimes? Apparently this guy who's been doing crimes a lot. So the story continues. The plot to free Ghosn apparently began last fall when operatives began scouting Japanese terminals reserved for private jets. Tokyo has 2 airports within easy reach of Ghosn's home, but the group settled on the private terminal at Osaka's Kansai International Airport, where machines used to x-ray baggage could not accommodate large boxes. On the day of the escape, Michael Taylor and Zayek flew into Japan on a chartered jet with 2 large black boxes, claiming to be musicians carrying audio equipment, according to court papers. Around 2:30 that afternoon, Ghosn, free on hefty bail, left his house on a leafy street in Tokyo's Roppongi neighborhood and walked to the nearby Grand Hyatt Hotel, going into a room there and departing 2 hours later to board a bullet train for Osaka. That evening, his rescuers wheeled shipping boxes through the Osaka private jet terminal known as Premium Gate Tamayura, fleeting moment in Japanese. Terminal employees let the men pass without inspecting their cargo. At 11:10 p.m., the chartered Bombardier, its windows fitted with pleated shades, lifted off. The flight went first to Turkey, then to Lebanon, where Ghosn has citizenship, but which has no extradition treaty with Japan. Quote, "I didn't run from justice," Ghosn told reporters after he surfaced. "I left Japan because I wanted justice." However, the plot here that I think is hilarious is that in this story, they lead with the photo of George Antoine Zayek and Michael Taylor at the Istanbul airport after having gone through passport control. This is them going through customs. And what's hilarious to me is clearly once Interpol or whomever figured out that the flight route that Carlos Ghosn had taken, and then they're like, oh wait, that fucking asshole came through passport control. Look at this guy, this fucking Green Beret who can't stop going to jail. This the Gone Baby Gone guy, except, the UN version of it. And immediately hemmed this guy up. It's amazing. I mean, but at the same time, I'm sure this guy, being who he is, has probably found a way to, through various different layers of corporate distancing, able to figure out how to, make sure that the money he got paid by extremely wealthy Mr. Ghosn isn't tied to his name. So whatever charges he winds up getting for this, the only thing I can possibly imagine is that given how many times he's done stuff like this, it's entirely possible that they'll send him to prison for longer. But this to me just it's so incredible because it's just all of those details added together. Like this, he definitely accomplished the thing that he was set out to accomplish. I mean, the plan worked. Apparently he didn't think, maybe the fact that I'm on the plane with the guy may not be a good idea, since now I'm going through passport control and now I'm going to be tied to it. But all things considered, who even knows? I mean, there are so many things that they probably could have done to avoid being tied to Ghosn. I mean, I don't know whether or not Ghosn immediately surfaced in Beirut, or if they had waited a little bit of time to sort of make it a little bit less obvious. But in the grand scheme of things, it's just hilarious to me because it doesn't escape notice that so many people in stories we talk about on this show who do a little bit of time in special operations in some capacity decide, hey, I would be really good at being an international criminal. And some of them do actually succeed. Most of them seem to get arrested trying to smuggle cocaine in a punching bag. And yet they never seem to lose this idea that laws aren't real, which, okay, maybe they're not. But the U.S., although it's normally okay with you defrauding the U.S. taxpayer for a fake scheme about training Afghan police because it's just a great big money pit, when you wind up pissing off one of the major world economies because you help smuggle one of their biggest fugitives out, the U.S. probably is okay with sending you to prison for the rest of your life. Probably.
We're not going to get out of this one, Taylor. Look, I think at the end of it, though, I just want to say this. Ghosn, baby, Ghosn.
God.
Should I have not done that while you're hitting the vape?
Oh, God damn it. Yeah, you should not have. That is a great, great, great fucking title. I was thinking of calling the episode Our Green Beret is Okay, but Ghosn, baby, Ghosn is amazing. Fucking amazing. You know, and honestly, I want to go on a little side topic here about Gone, Baby, Gone, because what a fucking weird movie. Basically, a movie about a husband and wife private investigator team who get hired to investigate the disappearance of a little white girl from a working class neighborhood in Boston, and it takes them all around the most just horrible, fucked up places they can possibly imagine. You know, the scary den of a Haitian drug dealer, a shitty bar in Boston where if you make eye contact with the wrong person, they'll beat your ass. A whole side plot about like some nightmare cocaine addicted old couple that like rent out a room to a guy who abuses children. Like that movie makes you think of Boston as the scummiest place on the planet, which it might be, but it's amazing to me because every other sort of portrayal of Boston seems to put you in the mindset that it's this amazing city that you just gotta love deeply, that, you know, people who are from Boston, like, they can't be from anywhere else because it's the only place in the world like it. But then a movie like Gone Baby Gone makes me think, you know what, I never want to go to Boston. I mean, I have been there, but I was like, I don't want to go back. It's bad. So
I'm trying to think of a movie that portrays Boston as not some like working class. We need to get Shocks on for this to talk Boston movies, but because the only other Boston movie I can think of is Boondock Saints, I guess, which is which is also like a, hey, look at all the gritty underworld of Boston, just, you know, sitting beneath the surface where all the normies are, and it's just like two brothers who are essentially a couple of dipshits. Lovable dipshits, but dipshits nevertheless.
Yeah, I mean, I would also throw out Good Will Hunting, The Town. There are a few others that are escaping mention. Mystic River,
Patriots Day.
The
Marky Mark Boston Bomber movie. Oh, the Departed. Okay, The Departed. Black Mass. Yeah, it's a lot of. What's going on with Boston? Are they having an identity issue because they're so close to New York City and they're just like, we're cool too, but like the only movies they can make are just like, look how much crime we have.
I mean, yeah, it's well, the Afflecks are involved, but also Cynthia used to joke with me that the thing people don't realize about Boston is that it's not really, in her opinion, it's not really as much of a blend of different kinds of spaces as you would have in a place like New York. In Boston, in Cynthia's opinion, there's two kinds of bars: the bar from Good Will Hunting or the bar from The Departed, and there's nothing in between. That basically it's either a bunch of Harvard guys with ponytails trying to like fucking, outsmart you, or once again, oh no, you made eye contact. Now someone's going to beat you to death with a pool cue.
Another classic Boston movie, R.I.P.D. The Rest in Peace Department, with Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds, that old canard that we all know and love. Look, Boston, stop making movies about how much crime you have. But also don't make Fever Pitch again, because that movie was bad too.
Yeah, I definitely do think it's a good idea to get Shocks on here to have like a roundup of Boston movies. There is something fucking Mystic River. There is something goddamn fucking Red Sox about this story about the Green Berets. And so in that regard, like, I'm sending out the Boston Beacon. All you guys want to talk about is your fucking city. So please, 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 Bostonians, help us out here. We want to get to the deep, dark heart of the kind of Massachusetts Irish cop guy who becomes an international human trafficker for good, or human trafficker for notional good, i.e., selling yourself as a dude whose favorite song is the national anthem, but is actually just an international criminal. I want to understand that brain space. I'm not from Boston. I can't understand it. I'll never understand it. Help us out.
I do. I gotta say, I love this Green Beret. I love all of our Green Berets, because I love that every one of them feels that like they get out of the military and the first thing that they realize is they don't have any marketable skills. And like, if that's where it ended and they just were like, well, I'll start a security company, it'd be fine. But it just seems like every one of them, Nate, just does crimes. Like, and I don't get that, like, the military, for all its faults, does attempt to instill inside of you, like, some kind of like, hey, don't be an asshole. Don't do crimes. Don't murder. I mean, look, I get it. We do all those things. But like, you would think that at some point in time, there'd be something in the back of these guys' heads that would be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing fraud. Maybe I shouldn't be I don't know. It just seems like they get out of, like, you got out of the military, and what do you do now? You produce podcasts. These guys got out and they, defraud the government for, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not saying that, like, being a podcaster is better. Certainly not more lucrative, but we're probably not going to go to jail for what we do. I'm just thinking that Green Berets need to do more podcasting rather than secure. Like, that's the thing. That's the big thing now. Just be a podcaster. You become a podcast. You get out as a Green Beret. All right. Here's for all of our Green Beret listeners. Get out as a Green Beret. Be like Clint Lawrence and be like really up the ass of Donald Trump. Get a couple retweets out of them. Set up a Patreon. Start kind of get that churning. You just start making a shitload of money from chuds, and all you have to do is go on every week and spend 45 minutes to an hour, Googling military stories and then yelling about them. But like the opposite side of us, and you're going to make shitloads of money legally, perfectly normally. It's all going to come right to your bank account. You're going to have to pay some taxes. I suggest you pay your fucking taxes, Green Berets. That shit will catch up with you if you don't. But look, it's not hard. It's not hard to do this. And you can do it on the chud side and make like 10 times as much as what we do. So I'm just saying, think about it. Before you smuggle a Lebanese, Brazilian Nissan executive in a cargo plane to Lebanon, think about maybe a podcast first.
Also, something I'd point out, because you got me thinking, is that there's an extent to which, if you're in a unit where you're constantly breaking the law, you're constantly, shooting people and then retroactively justifying it and saying, actually, no, I feared for my life. If you're at the point where this is just a constant thing, that you're reminded that the law doesn't apply to you, I think it could become very easy to see other situations where, if your thing isn't killing people, but rather being rich and making money doing shit that's illegal, you could see how easy it would be, or in your mind, how easy it would be to get away with stuff because you've been playing with the training wheels on. Which is not to say that, okay, being a Green Beret isn't hard. I get it. I'm not saying that the missions aren't scary and dangerous. But what I'm saying is that the military justice system does not fucking want to send you to jail. They want to find every possible way to exonerate you. They go into the system with the intention of finding whichever way they can to not charge you with things. That's the way that it works. That's not the way that it works when you're dealing drugs internationally or being a human trafficker. So unless your name is Jeffrey Epstein and you own a goddamn private island that Bill Clinton likes to hang out on, you're probably not going to get treated with the same kid gloves that you get treated with as a special operator doing crimes. And that's where I think and similarly, Army CID is probably not going to treat you with kid gloves if they catch you red-handed trying to smuggle, dealer weight levels of cocaine into the country. So that's where these guys run aground. Like, just doing some light financial fraud, setting up a fake services company to get paid exorbitant rates when you're not doing anything, goosing things a little here and there with some classified information that you're actually smart enough to avoid getting caught using. Like, those are all, that's all stuff you can get away with. That's not hard. Every grifter ass contractor is doing that. But these guys, what they fail to realize is, like I said before, using the metaphor of the training wheels, it's like, oh, I can, I've been riding these training wheels. I can ride and I'll be perfectly balanced. I'll be totally fine. Maybe you will be. You probably can't go straight from training wheels to winning the Tour de France, though. And that's where these guys try to become international criminals without really testing the waters, if you will. There might be some correlation with a false or overinflated sense of bravado and self-image from all this. Who knows? But it seems to wind up getting people onto the pages of Military Times and elsewhere, Reuters, the Associated Press, and then straight into the damn what a hell of a way to die content mines.
It's like you said, the military does its best to not put you in jail. The problem is the military also does not pay very well. So you run into these people who have the mix of, I'm out of the military, I want to make money. I see, all my buddies that got out started these security businesses and they're making a shitload of money. How do I know how to make money? It's by killing people and doing clandestine bullshit and, and things that might be not technically legal, may not be on the up and up. Maybe if, you scrutinized it with anything more than a passing glance, you would see that there are problems in what's going on, but you're protected. You're protected from that in the military. And then you get out and then you want to do these things and like, well, this is what I did when I was in the Green Berets. It's like, yeah, but we put you in jail for that now. And especially, as you said earlier, when you are like, when you are smuggling one of the top, fugitives from Japan out of Japan to go back to Lebanon, you've got no recourse. That guy, basically, Taylor should have just retired in Lebanon because there's no way he could leave, especially after being caught like that. Fucking his face just plastered all over the place. Like, and I found an AP story that was tied in the Military Times story. And I was just kind of glancing through that, and this was before they knew what happened, and just everybody was baffled. And like, I understand that you want to that this guy, he had a good plan, but it's like, fuck, dude, you're gonna get caught. Like, I'm sorry, this isn't Ocean's 11, man. We have security cameras everywhere. We have a lot of people who scrutinize this bullshit. You're obviously going to get caught. And the fact that just didn't come into his mind that this thing would have happened. Taylor needed, look, as always, Nate, Taylor needed fucking therapy and he didn't get it. So all of you, before you start international crime, 1, start a podcast instead, and 2, get therapy. And you're probably going to find that you're not going to make as much money, but you are going to be a little bit happier in general. Big proponent for starting podcasts and getting therapy.
But if you get therapy,
it's worked well for me.
But if you get therapy, just be careful because you might then be inclined to buy a hat that says this veteran is medicated for your protection. And if you do, then someone might complain and be like, ooh, this makes veterans look bad, which is a story that we have to cover as our second segment today. This story from Military Times headline is AAFES orders vendors to remove medicated vet ball caps after combat veteran raised concerns. So I'm just going to read really fast. Army Major Ian McConnell said he did a double take when he happened to catch the word medicated on ball caps when walking by a vendor's kiosk just outside the exchange at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, where he's stationed. Ball caps imprinted with medicated vet for your protection, this veteran is medicated for your protection, and dysfunctional veterans stay away from me were being sold at the vendor's kiosk on May 16th. Quote, I couldn't make sense of it. I stopped and I read the hat a couple times. I could feel a visceral response inside almost immediately, but I wasn't sure if I was responding correctly, McConnell said in an email. McConnell snapped a photo and tweeted the caps raised concerns on a variety of levels. Quote, honestly, is this intended to be funny? I continue to see too much civil-military divide over this stereotype and see service members choose suicide over treatment, said McConnell, a veteran of 4 combat deployments. Army and Air Force Exchange Service officials ordered concessionaires to remove the ball caps in response to Military Times questions prompted by McConnell's tweet. The caps are also being sold at other installations, and those concessionaires have been told to stop selling them too, said Chris Ward, AAFES spokesman. Information was not available about which locations.
First off, Major, how is this the first time you've fucking seen these hats? Go into the BX more often. I've seen people wear that shit for like 10 years now. Secondly, I mean, I agree. It's shitty. It's a dumb hat for dumb veterans. I'm sorry, if you have one of those. If the medication specifically isn't that you're hitting a joint right now, I don't want to hear it. Because all it does is it does have that, like, it's putting your red flags out there, I guess. So no, I have done a 180. Wear them because I need to know to stay away from your dumb ass if you're going to wear something like this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's one of those things where I would never want to wear any of those incredibly moto shirts that they sell in the PX, the various, kill them all, let God sort them out kinds of things. And I'm sure they still sell those, which to me is in the same vein, just as stupid as the medicated vet shirts. But obviously, those speak to a different sort of mentality, and so the military is totally fine with those. Okay, I get it. Yes, good things and bad things. Wow, what's the difference? But it's one of those situations where, to me, I'm always cautious about those aggressive veteran things because I don't know who they're supposed to be for. I feel like they encourage the worst tendencies in veterans and they help create this notion that we're all completely out of our fucking minds, which, to be honest, there's already so much abundant information that would give you that impression that I don't think you need to give civilians even more of that impression. So, to be honest, there's a part of me that's like, okay, whatever, stupid argument. But there's another part of me that's like, all right, well, good, get rid of them. But much like our discussion about cigarettes, I would say, hey, you know what you should do at the same time while getting rid of those? Get rid of all the fucking stupid moto shit. Like, get rid of the stupid, Route Irish fucking NASCAR team or whatever the hell kind of shit that you see. Just the stupid moto stuff because it's bad. Because A, it's not good for civil military relations. Because B, the only people who would buy that are stupid privates and they should save their money. They should be responsible. And C, cringe, all cringe. Such incredible. I feel so much secondhand embarrassment just even thinking about these.
Yep. Just like every t-shirt with a fucking Spartan or a Punisher logo on it or anything, like, get it the fuck out of there. The only thing, in fact, I want to get rid of all of anything that is not clothing sales. Just get rid of it if it's not a military uniform. Nobody should be buying a fucking graphic t-shirt inside of the BX. You buy your nice, going out shirts for when you're, in your civilian attire. But like all this, like, cross swords, muskets, the MP, military police, just all of it. It's all so fucking stupid. And it is like, it all feeds into the same thing. It all feeds into that, I am separate from the rest of you. And this bleeding Punisher logo with a bayonet in the eye is what tells you that I'm different than you. It's what tells me that I'm different than you, because you could never wear a shirt like this. I can wear a shirt like this because I'm a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever. And yeah, the medicated thing, I have seen those in the wild, and I avoid those people completely because I want nothing to do. I want nothing to do with you if you're wearing anything like that. I don't see you as a part of my community or ever being a part of my community. I apologize to any of our listeners who love their medicated for your protection ball caps, but honestly, come on, man, come on. You can do better than that. Again, unless it's weed. See, if you do medicated for your protection and it's a huge pot leaf, then I'm okay with that, because that has a good like dash of irony to it. But these are just like medicated, and then it has like, you know, the Afghanistan campaign ribbon or the Iraq campaign ribbon, and it's like, you know, the thing is you're not going to see the one that says in therapy for your protection, you know, talking through my feelings twice a week for your protection. You know, none of those things are going to exist. So, I mean, I'm with him. I'm with this major, but I'm also with you, Nate, in that all of this stuff, it just feeds into the Civ Mill divide, and it's just not. It's just not a good look. It's not a good look. As always, the look is not good.
And also, let's just be perfectly honest. If you're a troop and you wear this stuff, everyone thinks you're a dork.
Oh, God, yes.
Everyone thinks you're a dork. If you go to clothing sales and you buy any shirts with skulls on it and shit with like infantry, 3rd Infantry Division or whatever the fuck, broken TV or like whatever your unit is, air assault, you know, among other things. If you buy that and you wear it around the barracks, on post, off post, everyone thinks you're a dork and a virgin, right? Everyone hates it. They think it's embarrassing. They don't want to be around it. Just FYI. So to me, I started out being like, oh no, whatever, busybody, I don't care. But then after thinking about it, yeah, those hats are stupid. So is every other thing in this category. So you know what? Good on you, Major. Now let's just finish the fight. Let's take the fight to the enemy. Let's get rid of all Moto t-shirts and Moto gear. Get rid of all of it. We don't need it anymore. Society has progressed past the need for you to have Moto t-shirts for troops. We are in a new era. There's shiny Zeppelins and fucking glass towers everywhere because that's the world that we live in without Moto t-shirts. Let's get there.
The only thing that I could see continuing to exist in the PX after this is we're still going to keep that one aisle that's in the back that is all the military stuff that the military doesn't actually give you because they don't think that you actually need that bullshit. You know, like the combat hatchet and shit like that. All that stuff can stay. You know, because dumb privates got to have something to fucking spend their money on, like the combat gloves that have like the plastic, the hard plastic knuckles and everything. I know maybe those are issued now. I never got issued those. I only got the regular gloves. But also, who the fuck was I punching in the face? You know, all that dumb bullshit can still stay. But any shirt that has graphics on it that are anything other than the base that you're on. Like the only concession I will make is the happiness is Fort Sill in my rearview mirror. It's the only t-shirts that can exist. Happiness is blank in my rearview mirror. That's it. That's all you can own with a graphic t-shirt, or that's all you can buy. Any of the rest of it, you better go to Target and hope they start selling Moto shit, which they don't. You can pick up a good Blockbuster t-shirt there though if you really want to do some nostalgia shopping.
This is just juche for troops, man. We are just putting down the law. You know, no more of it. We will not stand for it. However, Francis, you had an opportunity to talk about some damn planes on the bonus episode, so maybe let the listeners know about that.
Yeah, I finally got Valerie Encina on. Valerie is a reporter for Defense News. Specifically, she's been doing a lot of work on reporting on the F-35. So I finally got her to come on and talk about the goddamn F-35, talk about why it is, you know, whether it's the great or the greatest plane, all the things that the F-35 does, why it's a big money and time sink, why that might not necessarily be a bad idea. And then Valerie is also a St. Louis. And so we talk some St. Louis shit. So please enjoy. I remember working with some MPs, and they had this little tiny drone that they just threw in the air and had a little thing that they fly it around with, and they could, it's basically a recon, like a route recon. Fly it up there, let it see what it's going to see, bring it back, and you can basically just crash land it because it comes apart. It's like it's not made of styrofoam, but it is like some sort of really lightweight material that just like the wings and the body pop off. The propeller is in the back, so like centered in the back. I think it was a Raven is what we used. I can't
Oh yeah,
remember.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so and that thing was really cool. It's just like throw it up in the air, it buzzes off, and then you can operate it and look at things, and then bring it back and kind of crash it. So
Yeah, I mean, drones like that, I feel like they're more like remote controlled than they are like automated. And I think we're sort of starting get to a point where we're seeing a little bit more automation in drones. Like if you look at like Boeing just delivered or just did a rollout of what they call their loyal wingman drone. It's for Australia actually, and the idea is that it kind of looks like a very simple kind of fightery type of aircraft, and the idea is like you would have like a pilot in like a Super Hornet or something like that who could just give like kind of basic instructions like go this place, do this, come back, whatever. And then the plane would do that automatically and would feed in whatever data or questions that it has for the pilot to sort of manage. So you kind of see like that step up.
now you mentioned what it feels like to fly in an airplane, fly in a jet. So I assume you flew in one.
Yeah, so I flew in basically the fighter slash trainer that Lockheed was offering for the Air Force's TX program, which was like the program that they were gonna buy a new trainer aircraft that all like, if you're going to be a fighter pilot, fly this one first, and then we'll get you in an F-16 or whatever else. So I flew in that. So it has like similar, aerodynamic performance than a fighter. But like every other time that so can I talk about like my biggest like bummer, my
Absolutely.
biggest heartbreak, as in this job. So a couple years ago, I did, a couple weeks traveling out in Europe, going to like air bases in Europe and hanging out with the U.S. Air Force there, as they were deployed different places. And this squadron of F-15 Air National Guard guys, they were out in Romania to do some training with the Romanians, and I was going to be able to fly in an F-15 with them. They had like one double seat F-15. I was going to be able to fly in it, and it sounded so cool. I was going to be able to like fly over Dracula's castle, and that's like the day where they had like the clearance for like, you know, the high speed, like high altitude, make you barf, like takeoff. And so I was like, yes, like 100% ready. Like I went through like the doctor's checkups. I like learned how to eject out of the aircraft and all of that stuff. And I was sort of just like, I'll probably just die, but it's fine because I'm going to fly in this aircraft. It's going to be amazing. And it broke. And these guys worked really hard trying to fix it because I knew how desperate I was to like get in this thing. And they thought they had fixed it, but then the test stand that they were using to test the fix, that broke too. And so I was not able to fly. And I was extremely heartbroken about it. I'm still not over it. Um, if anyone out there wants to take me in an F-15, please do it. It's the only thing that will make me okay after this. It's like I feel like I got broken up with and like still harbor a grudge.
Well, how about an F-35? Are there two-seater F-35s at all?
No,
Oh,
yes, like I would literally die to be able to fly in an F-35, but it is impossible.
they're kind of getting rid of the two-seaters now, aren't they? Like it's all going to single seats.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like the why have two bodies in there if you can simplify the work enough that one person can do it, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I did an interview with the guy who was the backseat driver in the F I can't remember which one, but he was a backseat driver for a while, and he said, yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. They're just kind of phasing them out. No need for all that when you've got so many electronics that do everything that you need it to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's good technologically, I guess, but like, as someone that wants to fly in a bunch of stuff, I'm like, okay, but can you build one of them with another seat so I can fly in it?
I'm surprised that the military is not doing more for. I mean, that's a money making opportunity right there. Is to like sell flights on F-15s and whatnot. So you can at least try to save up your money to jump in the back seat of one and throw up on the inside of it and then go about your day.
Oh my God, I'm sure they don't want to deal with the liability of it. Like, like if you're flying in one of those, you're already basically kind of signing your life away. Just like,
It is, and that's I've flown in a lot of military fixed wing and helicopters, and it really is like I'm sure the jets are different, but anytime you get onto a military aircraft, you kind of have that feeling of like there's a pretty good chance I'm going to die here. That
what
that
have you flown on?
I have flown, so I've plenty of C-130s.
Hmm.
I've flown on C-17. I flew in like the freaking seats along the side of the C-17. Flew that from Afghanistan to Germany. That was hell.
Hmm.
And then Chinooks, Blackhawks, and a Huey actually. That was a weird one to find out in Iraq. But there was civilians that still had a bunch of Hueys that were the two blade Hueys, and they took those things all over the place. So when you and this thing when you get on a military aircraft, like it's not you get in line to get onto the nice airplane, you go down the walkway, the stewardess is there, it's all climate controlled. Like getting onto a C-130, like while the jets are going, the propellers are going, you're getting a lot of backwash. You have to like walk a specific pathway because otherwise like you might get sucked into something. Same thing with helicopters, like you have to. When you approach a Black Hawk helicopter, you can never do it from the front because they're like, if we have to do a fast takeoff, these blades will come down to about 3 feet off the ground, and you are taller than 3 feet. So come to the side, walk onto it that way, and you're just like, just getting on the airplane is like I'm taking my life into somebody else's hands. So I can only imagine a jet is even more out there.
Yeah, like being in a fighter, like I expected it to be like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm in on a roller coaster. No, it definitely feels like the plane is like trying to kill you. It just feels your your body is kind of being like crushed like a soda can whenever you're doing like high G maneuvers. Like everything is just sort of like being like crushed inward. And then you've got like this suit on that also compresses, so it's kind of like weirdly painful. And then when you're lowering an altitude to land, I just got like so sweaty and like nauseous, and I was just like, oh my God, like this is like the worst. This is like the best worst feeling. And I like after it was like over, like they're trying to like take photos, like, hey, you did it, and I'm just like, oh my God, like please just never show anyone this. I'm so jealous whenever I see like reporter friends of mine who like look really good in flight suits and look really good in their photos after flying in something, because I always just like look like hell. And I'm yeah, like it's just a mess. But I still love it.
Yeah, when God, not probably about 5 years ago or so, I was doing training somewhere, and they managed to get a couple of Black Hawk helicopters to do training for loading casualties, and I'm a journalist for the military, so I'm just there taking photos, and I had a couple baby journalists with me. And they're
Hmm.
like, oh, we're gonna, after we get done the training, we've got time. So like, do you want to go up in the Black Hawk and take pictures around? And I was like, look, let me tell you something. I've done that enough. Take my baby journalist who will probably never fly on a Black Hawk, but I do not want to because I don't know how I'm going to feel on a Black Hawk. Like I've probably flown on, dozens of them, those in Chinooks, and either there are times when like I am strapped in to get the 5-point harness on and I'm just staring at the ceiling trying to convince myself that I don't smell burning hydraulic fluid or burning transmission fluid or burning fuel, like things that shouldn't be, smoke in the air. And then there's the time like in Afghanistan in 2004 when we were skirting around a thunderstorm over the mountains, and like, you get, turbulence in an airplane, like in a 747 or something, just like, whoa, that's kind of, crazy. But like you're in this cabin, you feel safe. You can see that the wings are still good. But when you experience a shitload of storm and altitude turbulence in a Black Hawk helicopter, it's like mind bending. But also, I was just in a headspace of I need to unbuckle and just press myself against the windows and watch this all happen as we teeter back and forth between these two like insane places, which is a bad idea because one, you will get knocked around, and two, those windows just like pop right out. So that's very bad ideas. Don't do those things. But all right, everybody. So thank you. As always, you can follow me at Army Strength, follow Nate at In These Deserts, follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. All of that on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We are wherever you want the podcast to be. Nobody has offered us $100 million to go Spotify exclusive yet. So we're still holding out hope for that Joe Rogan Experience payout. I understand we'll probably get a little bit less money, maybe 75 million. We'll see what they want to do. Nobody's approached us yet, but until then, you can also get a hold of all of our fine exclusive bonus content on our Patreon, patreon.com/hellofaWayToDie. We have about 3 years of bonus content, everything from videos to interviews to movie reviews to dad chats, a little bit of variety, a little bit of something that you're not necessarily getting on the free show. But we appreciate any support that you give us, whether that be monetarily, whether that be putting us out there in your own groups, letting people know about us, or just speaking highly of us. We really appreciate it. So until next week, Nate, we'll talk to you later.